You know, there are loads of games nowadays that have characters that look almost lifelike, loads of writers giving them lines that last 40-hour campaigns, and professional actors and models as voice actors and character models. But not many of these characters are half as memorable as the rectangles in a game called Thomas Was Alone.
They were doing really well. Claire hoped she could get them all across. John was fully aware he could do this alone. Thomas hoped he'd never have to.
Thomas Was Alone is a game I only saw in a YouTube video back in 2013, and I had great memories of that and the characters, and I couldn't remember exactly why. So I bought it, and needless to say, it was probably one of the best, most unique and most simple gaming experiences I've ever had. And it's actually a pretty good time to make this video because the game's just come out on the Switch too. And if you're coming from my other suggestions and you don't really play games yet, try it out. The game is probably one of the best games to get into gaming with, because it's more focused on the puzzles rather than the platforming, although at the end it does get a bit challenging, but the tutorial is really good and actually really enjoyable. I think it's like the first time I've ever paused during the tutorial, just because the narrator in this game is really funny and entertaining, and I just wanted to hear what he was saying before I finished the level. The movement in this game feels really good, the characters are really responsive to what you're doing, so it's not a game that you'll pick up and get annoyed at. The puzzles are all based off the character's shape and their individual abilities. All of them have a certain place where they start at the start of the level, and then they have a slot where you have to get them into at the end. At the beginning of the game you have one or two characters that you need to work with, but towards the end of the game you get more characters and more abilities to work with, and you need to use them together to usually get them all into place. The ambience is also really good. The music and the narrator really help you immerse yourself into the game. And speaking of the narrator, he is the reason that this game is so awesome. He's very humorous and is very self-aware about the whole thing, and as I said, he even makes the tutorial feel like it's natural and that it has a purpose in the story. The story and feel of the game are very similar to the first Land Before Time movie, which I absolutely love. The character starts off the story alone and vulnerable, on a journey to find someplace better. He meets a bunch of very unique characters that are on the same journey as him and join him on his journey. And by unique, I mean these characters come in all shapes and sizes. These characters have very different personalities, strengths, weaknesses, and unique abilities that they can help the group with. In both the movie and the game, the characters have to depend on each other's unique abilities and work as a group. If a single character leaves the group will not survive, and neither will that character that's left. In both stories, there's a common enemy the team needs to work together to defeat. In Thomas Was Alone, it's the Pixel Cloud, and in The Land Before Time, it's the T-Rex. And if you've ever worked in a team or shared a living space, it can be pretty frustrating. Personalities clash a lot of the time, and you have to learn that not everyone's perfect, including yourself. Because a lot of the time you'll have to cover for someone's weaknesses and they'll have to cover for yours. And that's what I love so much about both stories. Thomas starts alone, as the title suggests, and on his journey he meets all these different characters. He's a very happy-go-lucky, adventurous type. The first person he meets is Chris, who's kind of standoffish, and he's got a bit of a Napoleon complex because he's one of the shortest blocks and he's also got a really short jump. And his character arc is probably my absolute favourite. As I've said, he starts off very insecure and jealous, then he gets separated from Thomas and the rest of them, and he meets Laura, and those two kind of stick together in the puzzles for a few levels, and they get to know each other, and you know, a bit of romance plot going on. Laura is very insecure for other reasons. She's got like abandonment issues because her ability is her downfall. People use her bounciness to get to where they need to go, and then they have left her in the past and he hasn't done that. And they really get on really well, and when he meets Thomas again and gets separated, he feels really lonely, and he gets over his own issues and starts working for the sake of the group and getting to their end goal.
Chris was sceptical. He knew his abilities would be of no use to anyone, but Laura smiled at him. And immediately, he knew he had to do everything he could to help them get there.
It happens with so many different characters in so many ways, and every one of these developments for the characters feels well deserved. and earned. Just as somebody who wants to write his own stories in the future, I really admire the developer Mike Bithell on his approach. He made it so that the puzzles were not just puzzles and they didn't just fit the shapes. They also fit the characters' needs emotionally. Like, it made it feel like, you know, like when you're watching a movie and how the person's weakness and flaw is shown in his challenges and he has to get over them to overcome it.
Did I shoot it or did you?
What do you think?
The puzzles felt like that instead of just like puzzles that you need to fit shapes in, like it would do on the surface if you played it without any of the narration. And let's talk about the narrator, which is the thing that makes this game the masterpiece that it is. The narrator lets us into their thoughts, which is so much more important than anything the characters could ever say. It tells us what they feel, what their insecurities are, what their flaws are, what they feel happy about, what they believe in, and that's what makes each of the characters so relatable.
James grudgingly helped Thomas to each portal. He knew that eventually they'd find the others, and then he'd go back to being the weird one again. He decided to enjoy the time they had left.
It kind of reminds me of the writing style of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books and why they kind of blew up like they did. I've got most of the collection right behind that T-Rex skull over there. My brother's got the latest books because they're more his age range now, although I've still read those ones as well. He puts it in a diary format, so it feels like, well, we aren't being let in personally to those characters' thoughts and feelings. We still experience them in a very vulnerable state, and that makes us a lot more willing to empathize with them and understand their issues. Just think about how amazing it is that we don't hate Greg from Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Like, at one point I'm pretty sure he breaks Riley's arm, and it's like a funny little anecdote said in the diary. I can't overstate just how amazing the narrator is and just the writing of this game is. Every time a new character pops up and the narrator introduces them to us, it feels like another piece of the world is like filled in, and you get like, it raises the stakes because you have one more character that you care that much about, and that one character begins to make relationships with all the other ones. A good example of this is John. When he first gets introduced into the story, we only have Thomas and Chris, and John comes into the game looking down on everyone and thinking he's going to help the little people out and show off to them, and then he becomes friends with them, and it becomes more about helping his friends. And at the end, when he meets Sarah, who can double jump, he gets humbled because he meets somebody superior to him in the thing that he was priding himself so much on. So I hope I've convinced you guys to play Thomas Was Alone. If you can't play it, you can always watch it on YouTube. And if you want some movie recommendations, click here. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.